Hey guys, we are here today with Gary Howard. He is going to share his story with us today and kind of lived experience. So he was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia at age 17 and was essentially told he was never going to amount to anything. Started medication, went and joined the largest fire department in the U.S. and had a career as a paramedic captain. He has two boys, 12 and 14. Heart and blood pressure issue, and 3 major back surgeries and the psych conditions. A year ago, he was also diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and takes 31 medications a day, but is doing well and travels teaching for the Dementia Society of America. So we've been talking about having you on here for a while, but then your travel schedule was just crazy. So thank you.
It's been nuts.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to be here with us today, and I appreciate your time here with us. And everybody who is in chat, we do have a question queue open, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask them with exclamation point Q, and then follow it with your question, and you'll be able to ask them, and we'll be able to answer them as we go along here. So with that, first of all, just thank you for agreeing to be here today.
No problem. Happy to do it. Like I said, my travel schedule gets worse as we get warmer weather because we're in Illinois, so of course weather out here changes every 5 minutes anyway. But travel schedule will get worse, will get more intense, and I'm one of the only ones that does it, Midwest and up to where you're at there in Texas and that type of stuff.
My father also was a paramedic and firefighter, not in LA, but here in Texas. So what was the most common call you went on, and then the most exciting, and then the most boring?
Well, there's not really a exciting. Depends on what level you are. If you're first in your career, everything's exciting because you're scared to death the first 2 years anyway. But once you get past that and you get past the Johnny and Roy emergency syndrome, which everybody has, I started in 1978, which was, of course, right after the series ended. So everybody was saved, and we saved every life every time. And, of course, those things don't happen, unfortunately. The most common call in my station, they were South Central LA, which is probably the busiest station now there is. South Central is, of course, your gang areas and those type of things. Most common calls either shooting, stabbing, or cardiac. Cardiac is very common because of your older population, and they're just not in good health. We were blessed to have good hospitals. We got UCLA, Cedars-Sinai, all those right there. The most exciting call was probably the Los Angeles riots. I did work through those, which was extremely interesting. Some of us didn't get home for weeks.
Yeah.
And how people can destroy a town, well, it blows you away. We had firefighters lost in that. We actually had at least one that I know of, was shot off the back of a fire truck.
Wow.
That there is just, it's intense. Of course, we had the Reginald Denny incident where he was pulled out of his truck and beaten severely, and we were there for that. So that's probably the most intense stuff that I've dealt with. As far as boring call, there's a lot of those. People misuse the 911 system or emergency medical system or whatever you want to call it. It's misused so badly. But the most common ones I get are people who just need a ride to the hospital, don't have a cab, and guess what? They call us. There's an old saying in our business from the old days, you call, we haul. So it is a waste, and it ties up squads and ambulances, especially in L.A. You figure Los Angeles County has 18, 19, 20 million people in just one county, and that's the county we're responsible for. So if people was to ever learn, which they won't, here we are in 2020. I started in 1978. It hasn't changed a bit. People still waste the system. People still call 911 to see what time it is. I've had them call 911 to find out what movies they're playing.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah, it's unreal. I would love to be able to, which, of course, I couldn't, go through some of the calls we've received that you are just flabbergasted. You and I probably think of calling 911 as, the kid is sick or, chop your finger off or something. That's what it's for. But you would be surprised the calls we get. I have had many calls, where the patient walks to the ambulance with their suitcase. Not quite sure what we were there for, but that has happened more than once. In Los Angeles County, we are, as anybody remembers, of course you're too young to remember, but if you remember the show Emergency, we run squads, paramedic squads. and we will go to the scene of an incident and treat the patient accordingly. And then a private ambulance company will transport for us. LA, you've got AMR, McCormick, some big ones. And there's many times we show up, do their vitals, check them out. The patient walks to the ambulance with a suitcase in which they see and go to the next call.
Wow.
So, unfortunately, and that still happens today. I'm in a very rural area in Illinois, and we have a volunteer paramedic ambulance. And unfortunately, it happens here in small town, big towns, tiny towns, it doesn't matter. The EMS system is overtaxed, especially in big cities like Dallas and Fort Worth, and you get in New York and all that. It's just crazy. So, but yeah, like I said, the system's overtaxed, it's overused, and there's nothing we can do about it because as the population grows, it's not going to grow everywhere else. But that's basically the kind of calls that we dealt with in our LA area.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, the cardiac calls especially, you wouldn't think of kind of having somebody just misuse the system like that, but I know that it happens quite a bit.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
People are scared, and I get that. But what happens with them being scared is sometimes they misunderstand instructions from their doctors, or they misunderstand the medication labels. That happens a lot. You would be surprised how many people it says take one pill every 3 hours or take 2 pills every 6 hours, and they'll reverse it.
Yeah.
And that gets into people like me that have Alzheimer's. Of course, mine's early onset, so I've got a long ways to go. But you'll get people that take 6 pills in 2 hours.
Oh, goodness.
Then what the pill is, you can imagine the devastation with that.
Yeah.
Especially in some of your opiate drugs like Vicodin or morphine or something like that. It can cause quite a havoc. And then, of course, you've got the other half of that, which is the trauma aspect, which is your shootings and stabbings and, your gang relations and all that, at least where I'm from. Of course, out here in the rural areas we're at now, a lot of it's traffic trauma, crashes, combines, or corn country, so you get people ran over with combines, or they get into an accident or roll over. There's just different areas have different amounts of trauma. Mine was shooting and stabbing. Some might be traffic accidents. Some could be corn accidents. Some could be aircraft accidents. They work in military base. Trauma just comes in different forms. And what people don't think about is once the physical trauma is cured, now you've got the mental trauma, and that gets into your mental health issues.
Yep.
And it's just a vicious cycle. It really is. And until people understand and the stigma's gone, I don't think we're going to ever cure anything. We're going to treat people, we might medicate them, but we're not going to cure them. Your mind isn't curable. Think about it. You can't do a brain transplant, but you can do a heart transplant. You can do a kidney transplant. You can transplant a pancreas. You can take a piece of somebody's liver and put inside another person and it grows, but you can't do that with a brain.
Yep.
Look at all we know about hearts. I mean, literally open heart surgery, you're home in 4 to 5 days. Used to be 14 days, used to be 3 weeks. But again, it comes to the brain, we haven't even mapped it yet. So when you talk mental health, we don't really know what's going on up there, and that's the big problem. And of course, the stigma, that scares everybody to death.
Yeah.
Everybody's scared to death to say they have bipolar, schizophrenia, or major depression disorder, whatever they have. And unfortunately, the world's made them that way. And we have lots of friends that are in the UK, and of course they have mental health issues over there just like us. And their biggest problem is getting access to mental health because of the way their socialized medicine is, I assume. I'm not an expert over there. But when you get into mental health issues, you're talking a whole different scenario. You're not talking about a guy that's cut his leg or cardiac. When I go to a cardiac, I have a routine. I know what I'm going to do regardless of what type of cardiac it is, whether it be a third-degree block or a major block or, grandma's just having chest pain from Chile. We still have a routine we do.
Yeah.
You come to mental health, it's never a routine. I guess we could just jump into what I deal with. We don't know how I obtained bipolar schizophrenia. There is some talk about, I played football for Pee Wee all the way through college. There's some talk about concussions, but nobody really knows. But when mine was diagnosed, it was diagnosed because of my mania issues. One minute I'd be happy and ready to go run a 20-mile yard, and the next thing I'd be asleep all the time.
Yeah.
Of course, it got diagnosed. I was blessed. I'm on medication, as you mentioned, up the wazoo. But most people don't talk about, you can't have a career with mental health, so you're told. Obviously, I'm living proof that's not true. I started at the bottom like everybody else, busting hose, and I went to be a captain of a station, which is a big deal in the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do it, but you have to monitor yourself, too. I had a great psychiatrist, which I still do, great counselors, which I still do, people that understand my medication. I obviously understand it. Those are things that people don't realize you have to keep on top of. I can't miss my medication one day.
Right.
Has nothing to do with, now of course I don't practice, has nothing to do with it just being in a normal statute for myself. I mean, I don't want to be running on the street naked, so I don't miss my medicine.
Right.
But, these are things that you hear all the time on TV shows, ER or whatever. Did they take their medication? That's one of the first things we ask people as a paramedic or nurse, whatever, because missing your medication is vitally dangerous.
Yep.
It will hurt you in ways. The medication gives me a headache, or the medication gives me dry mouth, or whatever. I'm sure you know that there's tons of side effects for every medication.
Oh, yeah.
You take as many as I do. I'm surprised I don't just spin off out of the world sometimes. But I also know that if I stop any of them, I'm going to regret it.
Yeah.
When you have bipolar schizophrenia, you're fighting a double demon, because what's happening is you're fixing it with one medication, but you're lacking the other medication for the other one. You have to learn inside yourself that you need to take control, and no, you cannot cure yourself, and no, it's not all in your head. I hate that with a passion.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's just in your head. Well, yeah, it's in my head, all right.
Right.
But the problem is if I don't take it, I am a big believer in medication. Do I think everybody needs it? No, of course not. But I also know that if you take your medication responsibly, you will end up having a better life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll be 60 in August, and I feel like I'm 40 most of the time. So it's because I controlled everything. I had a great career. I mean, those are things people can't say. You always hear about saying, woe is me, I can't do it. It takes a lot of work. It's harder for me than it would be for somebody else.
Right.
But it depends on what you want to do. I mean, you can lay around and feel sorry for yourself. I have done that many times, trust me. But I also know that if I don't get up every day and do what I need to do, I have a family to help raise and all those types of things, which I'm blessed I'm retired, so I can be with the kids all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing you have to think about is you have to do self-care, too. There's times I just have to shut down.
Right.
And say, okay, that's it. If it's just sitting and watching football, and no, I'm not a Dallas fan, just in case you were going to ask me that. Bears fan, hello. But, those are things you have to do. And you also have to be very conscious of your physical health. If I get a cold or I get sick, it's not like if most people do. Because of my medications, my immune system is very compromised. So I have to be very careful. I can't sit in a room with 20 sick people blowing snot on me.
Right.
Just because it takes me longer to heal. Not that I'm going to die or anything, of course not. But it's just those are some of the things that when you're in a career like mine that is very challenging, you have to be very conscious of what you're going through every day. Unfortunately, people say, oh, it's just a job. It's true, it is. It is just a job. I still think you have to have a heart for it, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
The other thing is I have to be self-aware of how I'm taking care of myself, or I'm not going to take care of anybody else. I never took a sick day. I took my vacation because I was made to. I was very blessed, but I also kept myself very tuned into my medication. And that's the key, gang, is your medication, if it's prescribed and it's not working, you need to be your own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't their own advocates. They're scared of doctors because they wear the white coat and they went to school. Well, I got a master's degree, and guess what? I went to school as many years as they did, and I'm not scared of them. Do I know as much as they do? Of course not. I'm not a physician, never have been, never want to be. But you cannot be afraid of your doctor. If you're afraid of your doctor, you need to find a new one. And I'm not saying go dump all your doctors, because I'm sure somebody will write in a week and yell at me that I said that. But what I'm getting at is you have to be your own advocate. You can take family members. I always encourage that. But the doctor still wants to hear from the patient.
Right.
And the patient needs to say, hi, this isn't working. It's making me sick or giving me headaches or whatever it's doing. People need to realize that if you don't stand up for yourself, there's nobody else that can stand up for you because they're not going to understand your mental capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mean, you could go with me to the doctor. We've talked enough where you could go with me, but you wouldn't know what I was thinking yesterday that made me depressed, and those are things that only I'm going to know.
Right.
So people need to make sure they advocate for themselves. Again, take somebody with you, absolutely, but you need to make sure you advocate for yourself. Mental health is serious business, and it is a business because your business inside yourself. If you don't want to be better, you're not going to be better. It's
Right.
not. I'm not talking to go out and meditate and do the guru stuff. That's all fine, but you need to pay attention to your doctors, but pay attention to yourself and communicate. The one thing that even as paramedics we would ask: never lie to us. We don't care what you did. We don't care how you did it. We don't care what you did it from. We're not the police. We don't want to be the police. But if I don't know exactly what you're allergic to, or I don't know exactly what you did, what if I give you the wrong medication? Then I'm not helping the situation. I'm hurting the situation.
Right.
And there is a sign that I've seen many times on the internet. I don't know where it started. It's kind of funny. It says, never do anything that you're going to be too embarrassed to explain to the paramedics.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what? It's okay. I've heard it all. I've seen it all. I worked LA, trust me. But if you don't tell us everything, just like you don't tell your doctor everything, just because your doctor, him or her, has the notes in front of them from these fancy, wonderful computers we all have that says everything about you, that's not what's inside me. That might be my medication, that might be my history, the x-rays, whatever. But your doctor needs to hear from you what you're feeling and thinking.
Right.
Because everything's a template until we get started. And that's what medicine is. And so those are some of the things that we always encourage people. Tell your doctor everything. Tell your nurse practitioner, whoever you're using. They've heard it all.
Oh,
They've
yeah.
seen it all. You're not the first. And guess what? You won't be the last.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Right. Well, and even something as small, if you think about it, even something as small as, well, I took an aspirin this morning. If you don't tell your doctor that and you're in the middle of a heart attack, that's going to have a big impact on what they give you. So it's the same with your mental health or any other drugs that you've done, whether legal or illegal, and any medications that you take. If you don't share that with the paramedics when they arrive, or with your doctor whenever you're talking to them, or with your mental health professional, they're not going to be able to treat you effectively because they don't know the whole story. So you gotta share that. And we've said here before, like, feel free to fire your doctors if they're not working right for you and get new ones. So you shouldn't get any strongly worded letters after this.
Well, it's okay. I have been on, I've always done a lot of speaking in my career, and the one thing that I always say is, these are my opinions only.
Yes.
They don't come from the fire department. I'm retired now. My badge is in a wallet somewhere, and that's fine. But I can tell you from not only life experience, learned experience, educated experience, just being someone that's gone through it all.
Yeah.
I have a cardiac condition. It's a genetic condition that basically my heart's upside down. Now, one is to ask, how do you survive with that? Well, what that really means is that my vessels are backwards. They're in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it since birth. I am adopted. I was adopted as a newborn, so of course I have no family history, which drives my doctors absolutely nuts.
Oh, I'm sure.
I was born in 1960, so we wrote the courts in Los Angeles County, and their response to me, and I can, I have the letters still, I kind of laugh. It's about my fish bowl dog just decided to join me. My letter is about half a page, and it says there's no information available. So there's really no information available at all. Nicholas, there's no information available at all on my health. So, of course, I've had this my whole life, but does it impair me? No. And it was found by accident. Obviously, I went through a fire career, wrestling ladders and crawling on roads and, running and jogging and all that, and nothing happened. But what I'm getting at with that story is that you never know what your body's doing. So you have to pay attention to your doctors. And in this case, I have an amazing cardiologist. But in this case, just like you said, if they don't do what you need, get rid of them.
Yeah.
It's nothing personal. It's like business when you fire somebody. It's not personal.
Right.
It's just part of life.
Yep, absolutely.
But you don't want to go to a pharmacy and they give you a Vicodin for an appendix that you got taken out, and they give you half-strength Vicodin because they don't have any full strength. Well, that's ridiculous. You want a full-strength doctor. You don't want a half-strength doctor.
Yep, absolutely.
Because this is your life, and it's not just saving you from a broken arm or massive heart attack, you've got long-term relationships with this doctor. I mean, your doctor's supposed to be somebody you can trust with anything.
Yep, absolutely.
And if you don't tell them, guess what? Their mind reading capabilities stink, just so you know.
Yeah, no kidding.
So you really need to tell them everything. And again, it doesn't, like you said, and you said it perfectly, illicit drugs, regular drugs, doesn't matter drugs. You smoke dope. You know, here in Illinois, as of the 1st, it's legal for marijuana. Oh, my God, these people went nuts. Something like $10+ million in the first month in January in taxes. I don't know where that's going, but I hope it fixes the roads because ours stink. But, you know, the situation is that it doesn't matter what you take if you don't tell them. And let me give you a really good example. You mentioned the aspirin thing. Mm-hmm. If I get on the scene of a patient with chest pain, I'm going to give you an aspirin, plus nitro and a few other things.
Yep. If
you've already taken two, then what good am I doing you?
Right.
I'm doing a step that's taken away from giving you something else. So when you said the aspirin, it really keyed in perfectly because we do give you that.
Yep.
Especially on the cardiac call. And if you've already taken two, hey, good for you. Now you're one ahead of us, and let's go to the next thing. Is it working? No. Okay, well, now we go to the next thing. You know how medicine is. Medicine's all about, you know, deleting things and adding things. If you've already added the aspirin, I'm just going to go to my next medicine.
Yep.
And that saves a lot of time. And yes, time is important. But if you didn't tell me that, am I going to hurt you by giving you more? No, probably not. But what if you have to go to surgery and now I've pumped you full of aspirin plus what you took?
Yep.
Then you've got a bleeding factor. I mean, there's too many things that can go on by not telling.
Oh, yeah.
If you tell me you took aspirin, hey, good for you, good thinking. Why would I be mad? And everybody's on this assumption that somebody's going to be mad. Well, let them get mad. Get mad in the same place you got to go at in. But we have to know.
Yeah, they can be mad, but if it helps them do their job better, then...
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we're mad, well, first of all, if we're mad about it, we're being silly. But second of all, if we're mad, so what? Probably mad anyway if you woke us up at 3 in the morning we hadn't had breakfast. I mean, there's all kinds of stories. But the biggest thing is you have to tell us what you're doing.
Yeah,
I have nitro, obviously, like most people do that are cardiac patients, and I'm going to take mine long before the boys get here to take me. Well, I'm going to tell them I took 2 or 3 or whatever I took. Mm-hmm. For now, the reason that's important is we get a lot of patients, you know, taking their nitro. We get there. We don't want to give more nitro. Why? Because nitro bottoms out blood pressure. So now they've passed them out. I've bottomed their blood pressure out. They've already taken it. And then I got another thing to worry about. Mm-hmm. So, again, if they tell me, hey, I took 2 nitro, oh, okay, good. Now I'm not going to touch that. I'm going to go to the next medicine. These are all just things, and it comes back to what we're talking about. Tell the doctor. Tell the paramedics. Tell the nurse practitioner. Whoever you see, tell them. Because trust me, if you tell me you do pot and it's not legal, they're not going to call the cops on you.
Right.
They're just going to know that you're really in a good mood all of a sudden, and you probably want a bag of potato chips.
Yeah.
So these are things that they need to know. And that's one soapbox a lot of medics get on is, got to tell us everything. You'll hear them say it if you've ever had medics at your house or, you know, even on TV, which, of course, we all know the shows are a little different. But, you know, if you see them on, you know, you're going to hear, is there anything I should know about? Is there any reason I shouldn't give you morphine or any reason I shouldn't give you fentanyl? I mean, you know, are you allergic to something? I mean, allergies, there's another big one. I've had many people, I'm not allergic to anything, give morphine and blow up like a balloon. Oh, I forgot to tell you that. Well, let's have that conversation again.
Right.
And now you're getting into the danger zone. But we're going to give you medications we use every day, but if you're allergic to it, now what?
Yeah, right.
You didn't remember? I get that. Some people do. Oh, I was allergic to it when I was 14 in the dentist chair. Okay, I can see where that would slip your mind at 60. Mm-hmm. But it's still, if you can remember, tell. Because it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it does.
Mental health, I will tell you that it's the same guidelines. But if you don't tell your psychiatrist every mood, everything that happened, if all of a sudden your mania changes, you go into a hypermania or hypomania state, it's very important that you tell them how that changed and when it changed.
Yeah.
Was it food-related? Or was it an argument you had with your spouse? Did you get in a fight with a traffic cop? Did the red light turn green? Whatever it was, that will tell them how to adjust your medication. Mm-hmm. And trust me, it'll be a much more comfortable livelihood for yourself if you tell them. If you get into your psychiatrist's office, oh, everything's fine, I'm having a great week, they're not going to change their meds. Why would they?
Right.
Well, the meds are working. Well, then you get in the parking lot and punch out your car. I mean, these are things that people just They're afraid if they tell, they're going to get in trouble. I don't know what they think they're going to get in trouble from. I don't know many psychiatrists that yell, so you need to tell people. And this is one of the things I tell people all the time. You have to speak up. That is how my early onset Alzheimer's got caught, was by my wife. She's in the health professions also, and what was happening is I was repeating myself all the time. I would say the same thing 4 or 5 times. Well, you know, I'm getting older, so of course you put it to that. I've had over 7 concussions from football and 1 personal one. So there's that. So we just figured it was just part of getting older. Well, then I would be into the middle of a sentence, like you and I talking now, and I would forget what the heck we were talking about. Well, I did right in front of my neurologist, who all of a sudden lights went real red, and you can imagine how that went. I went in for testing and all these things you do, and they determined it was early onset dementia, which they're classifying as Alzheimer's. I think it's one of those where they're not exactly sure.
Yeah.
And usually you aren't. Now when you get into dementia, that's a whole different conversation. But does that mean I'm going to start drooling in my soup tomorrow? No. I am taking all the Alzheimer's medications that are out there. I do believe it's slowed it down. Of course, it doesn't cure it. And if I just made some pharmacist mad, sorry, but none of the medications cure it. It never will.
Right.
I'm sure someday I'll invent one, but it'll be past my lifetime. But the thing is that you need to, now have we ignored all those signs, I would now be walking around without medication a year or some later. I mean, I remember my kids' names, and of course, I'm fortunate that hasn't happened. But again, most people would say, oh, they just repeat themselves, or I just forgot where I put my keys, or I keep forgetting my kid's name. Or, those are all signs you need to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
If those are all in a row, you might want to have a talk with your doctor.
Yeah.
Hey, I think I may be having some dementia issues. They'll send you for testing and all that. There's other types of dementia. There's Alzheimer's. There's dementia from depression. There's several types, obviously, which, again, that's another conversation. But those are things that you need to pay attention to. If 4 or 5 of those things are happening to you in a row, just because you're 45 or 50, doesn't mean that you can't have early onset. I'm 59, I'll be 60 in August, and I've had it for about a year and a half now where I did Diagnosis. So that's very early onset, but it is what it is. That's what got me involved with Dementia Society, obviously, was that, which Dementia Society of America, what we do is we go out and we teach classes basically for caregivers, nurses. We'll do one-on-one on homes. I cover the Midwest, Texas, the Eastern Coast area. And what we do is we have a video that we show, which basically does all the work for us. I'll send that to you, too, when I send you this stuff, by the way. And what it does is it enlightens people. It gives them little keys to... I wish I'd have had a year and a half ago, because I would have been diagnosed earlier, because I didn't think anything of it. Being in the medical profession doesn't make me an expert. But these are all things that if you don't look at them in the perspective of telling your doctor... When my wife noticed it, I told my primary, I said, hey, I think I got dementia issues. He set me up for testing, sent me to a neurologist, and the rest is all history. But had I not done that, I'd still probably be walking around, or who knows, I may even get lost going home. I mean, you just don't know.
Right.
The medications have been on board about a year or so. Again, we hope they've slowed it down. It seems to have, because there are times like talking to you now, I have to stop and formulate, but that's just part of the disease. There's nothing I can do about it. But the biggest thing is when it comes to mental health and crosses over into dementia for me, is that while I'm still able to do these things, I'm going to teach and go do classes and travel and whatever I have to do. Because if I tell one person that's somebody that got diagnosed sooner, and I now understand the importance of that, which, of course, I didn't know that a year and a half ago.
Right.
And, of course, early diagnosis on anything is wonderful, but the biggest thing is when it comes to dementia, Alzheimer's, any of those really nasty things, cancer, the quicker you find it, the quicker you may not cure it, but you at least can slow it down.
Right.
So that is basically how I got where I'm at today. Like I said, I've been retired for a few years. But now my passion is taking care of the Dementia Society, and I still have the 2 teenagers, which there's a whole other story. But I'm sure you'll learn that soon enough. But, the thing is that as long as I'm able to function, I'm going to go out and teach. Mm-hmm. And as long as I'm able to function, I'm going to tell people that you can. Nobody ever talks about working and having mental health issues. They talk about not being able to, which I fully get that too, trust me. But you have to take charge of your life to have a career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, can everybody do it? No. I might be lucky. I might have been in a situation where my medicine, really helped me out. But the one thing is you can't stop trying. Because it's really easy to sit at home in your chair and turn on your TV and say, the heck with it. But I'm just not willing to give up that easy.
Yeah.
It would have been really easy to do. I'm sure I could have gone on state disability and, sat home and ate bonbons or watched Days of Our Lives or whatever's out there. But it wouldn't have done what I wanted to do. And then when your mania is high, you say, I can do anything. Well, you have to learn to put it in the middle.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I've dealt with. And again, it's all a learning experience every day. I still have trials and tribulations, and I will tomorrow, and I will, I did yesterday, and it's okay. It's just fine. It's what it needs to be. And what it needs to be is education, education, education. And that's the biggest thing. We need to educate each other. Whether it be you and I sitting here talking to people, or whether it be you talking to people about something, or whether it be me doing Dementia Society, every one person you educate educates three. Remember that.
Yep,
one person
absolutely.
educates three. So, those are important things to do. But that's kind of how I got to where I'm at today and where I'm here. And I'm, it's been a long road. It's had its moments, and I'm sure my family will agree. I'm sometimes a pain in the butt. But,
everyone's family thinks that, though.
That's true. They always say your doctor treats you like your family. I'm thinking, I hope it's better than my family, because sometimes. But, we all say that. What's the old saying? You can't take your family. And, it's just a situation where mental health, dementia, these are things that affect the one organ that we don't know a lot about, and that's the brain.
It's very true.
Can't fix it, can't transport it, we can't transplant it, and we haven't mapped it. So until all those things are done, which again won't be in my lifetime probably, I don't think we're going to control mental health. I think we're going to keep it at bay. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I can't be cured. I know that. I have friends that can't be cured. Can depression be cured? I don't know. I'm not an expert. I know it can be controlled. I know it can be kept at bay, but I know people can feel better. But again, if you don't tell everything, we're back to that again. If you don't tell what's going on with you, or you're too scared, don't be scared. What's most somebody can say? So it's all in your head. Well, you're right. It is.
Yeah, right. That's exactly where it is.
Exactly where it is. It's between the temporal lobes, and there you go.
Yep.
Really, that's kind of how I got here. I probably talk too much, but that's how I got where I'm at, and I'm proud of where I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will tell you the one person who was interesting to me was Jeffrey Dahmer, and I will tell you why. Other than he's just flipping nuts, he did the horrible things he did, and of course, I don't want to get into it as far as making anybody that's out there that was a victim or victim's family or friends. But it's interesting when you think of how he came to his demise, and of course, he was killed in prison, as everybody knows. And what's interesting is he never really suffered the way his victims did, though. And, a lot of people say, well, he got what he deserved. Well, I don't know about that. I wasn't there for it. But I do know one thing. If he got what he deserved, was it enough? And I've actually asked people that. But Jeffrey Dahmer interests me only because he actually believed, at least stuff I've read about him, he believed what he was doing was the right thing, and that's what gets me about these people. They believe it's the right thing. But I'm not sure at what level they think it's the right thing. But, Dahmer would probably be the one that interests me most.
Yeah.
Just because of the way his demise was. And I'd rather see him go to the electric chair or something that was actually a little traumatic. But, I guess one way or another they got him.
Right. Yeah. He met his end. Whether it was the way that it needed to happen or not.
Religious beliefs. I don't talk about religion. It always makes somebody mad. But you can believe heaven and hell and all that stuff. But I guarantee if you believe in it, you got an express truck.
Oh yeah.
No doubt about it.
Most
Somewhere.
Definitely. What was the biggest challenge before that diagnosis, and did your perception of that challenge in particular change after that diagnosis at 17?
Absolutely. The biggest challenge was to keep people in your life that wasn't your family. Because what happens is you have these highs and lows that are so intense. And one of the things about adding schizophrenia with bipolar is that you have scenarios that go on in your own brain that you've made up. Now, whether they're real or fictional, it depends on what the situation is. So you can actually, be friends with someone, visit with them, and the next day you can actually forget everything about them. That's bizarre. I just thought I had a terrible memory at a young age. I didn't realize what I was fighting. And then anger would be one, where I could be just floating along, everything's fine, and something stupid, and I mean stupid, would flare me, and the next thing you know, my eyeball would bulge out, and I'm ready to go to combat. And I thought, well, maybe I'm just turned to a teenager with testosterone, but I started realizing this just can't be normal. I never picked fights or anything. I wasn't one of those. I played football, so of course I had a lot of exercise. But you just get to where, which made for some good football plays when you have one of your moments, but it just is amazing how quick you could turn. Something on the field would happen, and it would be just silly. And I would I'd rip somebody's helmet off. And you think to yourself, what? I just thought it was part of growing up, to be honest with you. And then my parents, of course, who had amazing parents, they realized that, well, this is a little much. So they took me to the doctor, and then, of course, went through all the tests, all that we found out. Once medication started, I leveled right out, and it took about 2 or 3 months. But you don't realize, you think it's a normal part of growing up, because you talk about the boys have testosterone, so, of course, they get, grumpy, and, they're chasing girls, so they're grumpy, or whatever stories are. I don't know what my stories were, but I surely know it wasn't normal ones.
Yeah.
And then when we finally found out, obviously I was blessed to get, medication and all that. Now, you want to talk about stigma, try doing something in the 70s. You were either put in a nut house, or they loaded you up so much with Valium and everything else that you were just a zombie. I was blessed I had a doctor that wasn't like that. He knew exactly what to target, and he was into all the new stuff. He was a young guy. He was back in California. And I was lucky because if I would have been part of the scenario of stick them in a nut ward or dope them up, I don't know that I would have got treated correctly. I certainly wouldn't have started out the career I did.
Right.
So I was real blessed. I've been blessed considering what I've been through. You figure when I was 17, I was 1977. And you can just imagine the stigmas in those days. Holy Jesus. So I was lucky that I have seen many people as a medic. I've been to many, insane asylums, and I guess we're supposed to call them that now, mental health units. But I have seen people that literally, we used to call it the Thorazine shuffle, because they'd load them full of Thorazine or Haldol or, Trazodone or whatever they had available. And that's not curing someone. That might keep them calm for the edge. And I understand. I've seen people who are very psychotically disturbed need to be calmed down, because you can't treat anybody when they're flailing. But once that part's over, you need to start really focusing on the permanent medication, because anybody can give you a sleeping pill or a Ativan, or that's very common, but you don't want to live on that stuff.
Yeah, right.
So those are the things that I was lucky I didn't have to go through, because I'm sure I would have fell right into that. So that's kind of how things were for me. I thought it was normal growing up, and then I didn't realize that I was just being aggressive because of my disease. And then I started realizing, okay, how's this going to work? And, once you start your medication, your counselors and those things, you're fine, but it can be taxing on you. And is it tough as a teenager? Oh, absolutely. Because then you think you're not normal, and, that whole thing you go through. I started therapy at the same time I started with my psychiatrist, which I think made the difference, because I was able to realize this is a disease just like, cancer or anything else, and when you do your medication and keep up with everything, you're fine. But boy, the stigma in those days was terrible. I wouldn't tell anybody. I told nobody.
Yeah.
Not even my best friend from birth, who I still to this day talk to, and I would never told anybody. My parents were the only ones who knew, because I thought, can you imagine? Oh my God. Of course, you're scared. And then when I joined the department, of course, no one knew. you don't share those things in a fire station, trust me, because you might be sleeping in the truck. So you definitely don't want to be doing it. But that's kind of what happened in the beginning with me. It was found quickly. I would say so. I wasn't an adult yet. But I'm glad we found it before I became an adult and lost it and, started beating people up on the street or something.
Right.
Because mania is very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Your highs and lows can be very, very high and very, very low. And if they meet in the middle sometimes, boy, you've got an experience you don't want to have.
Yeah. Does your diagnosis, has it helped you relate to others with that same diagnosis? And especially as a paramedic, I'm curious to hear.
Absolutely. It puts a soft spot in your heart. When you get mental health calls, unfortunately, as a medic, we can't do a lot.
Right.
We can calm you down a little bit. We can dope you up a little bit, depending on your state and county. And some regulations allow you, some don't. That's all up to how your organization does, or your protocols, as we call them now. But it surely makes you approach things different. And I will also tell you the other thing is it helps you with suicide calls a lot.
Yeah.
Because you've already thought that a million times. Trust me, I have thought that a million times. And when you get there, first thing you never say to anybody suicidal is, "Oh, I understand." No, you don't.
Right.
You get what they're going through on your level, but if you tell me you're going to commit suicide, obviously I'm not going to know what you're feeling. I don't have your children. I don't have what you've been going through. I don't have those things. But you're going through something. I can understand you're going through it. I can't understand what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never, and they try to teach us that. Some of the guys, old school, they just say, "Oh, what's your problem?" Mental health gets zero sensitivity in the field.
Yeah.
Not that it's anybody's fault. It's there's not much we can do. All we can do is talk to somebody. And I have been on people's house calls. I've been on the same person 20 times before, sometimes 30. And they just, for that time in their life, it's really bad.
Right.
But yeah, it makes you very empathetic. In fact, it was kind of, I made a point of if I had the option, I would go on those calls because I know that I'm going to understand better.
Yeah.
Their medications that they take, you know what they are, obviously. You're probably on some of them yourself. So again, you're able to help them when they tell you, "Hey, I'm having this feeling, this feeling, this feeling." You know that's a side effect. Now, of course, as medics, we cannot prescribe and we cannot say, "Hey, we know this is what's going to happen."
Right.
But when they tell it to you, you're not as caught off guard.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes you extremely empathetic, and you're almost telepathic with them because you now fully understand.
Right.
And I've been told, I don't know if it's true, I've been told they can sense when you're not being false with them, depending on their level of mania or suicide. And they knew for a fact, anybody that was ever around me knew for a fact I was sincere as a dollar bill.
Mm-hmm.
And they also knew that I wasn't going to lie to them. Now, if I had to restrain them or I had to, do something a little aggressive, I would tell them, "You're going to have to restrain because you are flipping out and I can't even fall off this gurney."
Right.
And, I tell them the truth. Never lie to a patient. That will get you in so much trouble. Because down the road, I'll tell you what's going to happen. It's going to bite you in the butt.
Well, yeah,
Every time.
And I mean, you're right. A lot of people have this kind of radar for whether or not you're lying to them, and if you are already in a worked up state, and especially in the case of suicidal ideation, if you're already you're already in a situation where you're contemplating suicide and you've got all this stuff going on, and then you have somebody who's supposed to be helping you, and then you can feel like they're lying to you, like that doesn't help anything.
You're exactly right. And unfortunately, because people are scared, I mean, the one thing that I don't know if people understand, and I would think they do, we are not something that is superhuman. We are just like anybody. We just went to school, we took a passion, we went to the academy, we went to paramedic school, we went to medical, but we're still just a person.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way I'm going to know. Let me give you an example that used to drive me nuts. Well, let me tell you what's going to happen when you get to the hospital, Mrs. Jones. They're going to do this, 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 and this. That's fine. That's what you're supposed to tell them. Don't say to them, oh, when you get there, they'll fix it all. That's not going to work that way.
Right.
And don't lie to them when they say, I'm scared I'm going to get a shot. Oh, you're not going to get a shot. I guarantee you get a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't answer it. I mean, you don't lie to them, but then you don't want to inflame them anymore either. You have to balance act between what's inflaming somebody and what is fitting. I have never and will not lie to a patient. But I also don't want to inflame them. I mean, I'm not going to tell them you're going to get 20 of Haldol and 5 of Ativan, and they're going to tie you to a bed. I'm not going to say that. Are they going to do that? I don't know. That's the hospital's protocol, not mine. What happens between the time I get on the scene and the end of my ambulance gets them into the hospital, that's not my business. What happens when they get in there, I can't predict.
Right.
And I've told patients, I don't know what's going to go on, but I can tell you what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I can tell you what I'm going to tell them I did, and I'm going to tell them what you told me.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can tell for you. But when you start saying things like, oh, they're not going to do that, or they're going to do this, how do you know what they're not going to do? Do you know what they're? Of course you don't. I don't care if you've been in a hospital 5,000 times. One of my base hospitals is one of the biggest in LA, UCLA. I would on a bet tell you exactly what they're going to do when I got there because every time is different.
Yep.
You know, if you call me up and I come to your house and one of your children hurt themselves, I'm going to tell them what I think it is. We're going to get you bandaged up. We're going to take you to the hospital. I have no idea what they're going to do when you get in there. Yeah. You're probably going to get an x-ray. You're probably going to get this. But, you know, you'll always notice a medic who's done it a while, they'll say possible or probably because we don't know.
Right.
You start getting definite answers in the field, you're going to get in trouble unless you really know what you're saying.
Yeah, that's very true.
And if you lie to a patient, you're in trouble.
Yep.
Because they will never, by the way, mental health patients never forget anything. Just so you know.
Yeah.
You might think they do, they don't. And they're done that. And I'm telling you, mental health patients have a whole new perspective on things. And there's been times I've got on calls and I've been on a patient scene that I've been to many times, and they'll calm down when they get there because they know I'm not going to fib to them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, fibbing just doesn't buy you anywhere. It doesn't buy you anywhere in your personal life. It's sure not going to buy you anywhere in the field.
Yep, it's very
But
true.
people do it because they don't want to deal with the stigma, or they don't, or honestly, they might just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You can be a medic for 40 years like I've been, and you know what? I still think, I don't know if I can do about that.
Yeah.
But because we're human.
Right.
But those are some of the stigmas that I cannot stand, but I hate when people lie to patients. Just, if you lie to them just to shuffle them down the road, you're not doing anybody any favor. And unfortunately, it goes on a lot. I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, you've been to hospitals, you've been to doctors, you've got kids, you know. I'm sure that somehow, somewhere down the road, you've been fibbed to, and you're thinking, that's not quite what we're going to happen.
Yeah,
but, okay.
Right.
Yeah, we've all been down that road.
Well, and even with my kids, if I take them and they say, oh, I don't want to get a shot, and I know they're going to get a shot, I'm like, listen, we're going to the doctor. Whether you're going to get a shot or not, like, that's where we're going. But if I tell them, no, you're not going to get a shot, and then they get a shot, like, they look at me like I have completely betrayed their entire world.
Murder, exactly.
Because there was one time that I went in with my daughter, and I thought that she was not supposed to get shots until she was 11, but then she did have to get a shot at 10, but it was just one instead of like 3. And I told her before, I was like, no shots. You'll get the flu shot. It's the only one you're getting, so it's just the one. And then it wound up being 2. And I mean, 10 years old, she already had the sass of, well, she's 13 now, but she already had the sass. And I'm just like, man, I didn't know. I told you what I thought, but I should have said probably. I should have said probably only one.
That's why you always hear old school medics. We always say probably. It's like if I go to your house, you call me, and you've been out, you know, skiing or something in Texas. Yeah, that's gonna happen. But
water skiing.
Yeah, that's true. It's bad. But you know, if you get a situation where I come to your house and your leg's sideways, and I know it's broken, I'm not going to tell you it's broken. I'm going to say, well, possibly could be broken or possible fracture. The reason I say that is, what if it isn't?
Yeah.
What if it's just dislocated?
Yep.
I mean, there's 1,000 things it could be. Of course, you know, if it's torn off at the root, I might actually say, yeah, you're going to have a problem there.
Right.
But you always say probable or possible because you and I both don't know. And I've had that happen too, even though I should know better. First thing mine say to me, but you were a medical person. How come this did? I don't know, Lord. it's the same situation you went through with your daughter. You kicked yourself right in the butt.
Yep.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
Yep.
But again, unfortunately, people shuffle on the buffalo, as they say, and they try to get patients out the rig, or they try to get them in the hospital, or can't lie to them to do it.
Yeah.
You may omit something because you don't know.
Right.
But lying just doesn't buy anything.
Yeah. That's very
true. I guarantee when they get in there and if something happens that you told them wasn't going to, they're going to remember you.
Yeah. Well, that's true just in life in general. Like, a lot of people will, you know, oh, little white lies just don't matter. And I'm like, no, you start off with the little white lies. It just grows into bigger lies, and then you're done. Yeah, then you're done with it. So you talked... You talked a little bit about kind of the signs and symptoms that led to your diagnosis of Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So do your kids, you said you have a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, do they understand your diagnosis? Have you talked to them about it?
They're actually both very medically inclined. In fact, both of them are trained in all kinds of medicine, obviously. They live around it. They understand it fully. My 14-year-old understands it fully, and he even will usually go with me places now, just to make sure everything's copacetic with Dad. But they fully understand it. They know the longevity. They know what to look for if I start to slip. They also are ones to make sure, you know, if Dad starts acting just a little bizarre, you know, is it the Alzheimer or just having one of them days? But they check on me all the time, every day. If I'm not where I'm supposed to be, or if I'm late doing something, they'll call, hey, Dad, what happened? Or, you know, if I drop a pot in the kitchen, they think it might be me on the ground. They'll come check. So yeah, they're very in tune to it. The medical part, I think, has just got bred into them. They can't help that. But my oldest is actually going to be a neuropharmacologist.
Wow.
So he's really in tune. Yeah, I know. That's way out of my pay grade. But he's very in tune to mental health, and he's extremely in tune to my Alzheimer's. He knows the medications. My 12-year-old just about as bad. I'm very blessed. They're both very intelligent boys. But they know if Dad's having an episode or something bad's happening. And the reason being is because I'm here alone, obviously, when they're at school, because my wife works 12-hour shifts. And so it's a situation where they have to be on top of what's going on just in case. They know when it's time to call for the ambulance. They know when it's time to get me to the hospital. They know all those things. So, yeah, they're very in tune to it.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing because I need that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a lot of episodes these days. I'm very blessed the medication is slowing it down. But I still have a situation where, you know, it's important.
You're a volunteer with the Dementia Society, and you teach the classes and go and give these speeches to caregivers, hospital staff. So what sparked your interest in that line of work? Was it your diagnosis? Were you already involved with that?
Well, you have a headset, Nicholas? I may have to switch headsets on you here, kiddo.
That's okay.
To where my chair is to get the black one. I'll tell you what happened with the Dementia Society. I actually looked up stuff because and so I was looking up like resources and that kind of stuff, and I tuned into Dementia Society of America, and I saw volunteer. I thought, well, I could do something, phone calls or whatever. And come to find out, they actually wanted some classes, which is what I do, and they don't have anybody, and they especially didn't have anybody out here in the rural area I'm in. So with that being contacted their co-founder, and their founder of it, and battery died. You with me still?
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, much better. Okay. What happened was they needed somebody to go out and do these classes. Well, of course, my wife worked in the hospital, me being around it, it was easy for me to go. And I just got really into it. And now I go everywhere they send me. If somebody calls over to the call center for us and says, hey, we want to have a class done over here at this hospital, or this nursing home, or if someone calls and says, hey, my grandma has dementia, she's early onset or she's advanced onset, but we don't understand it. They have me get a hold of them. I can send them out the information, and then we go to their house and do it. There's only a couple of us that do it. And the reason being, I have the advantage is not only the medical background, but I actually have dementia. So what I usually do is we'll show the video, which is very explanatory. Our Kevin Jameson, who's the founder of our organization, his wife had it, very educated man. And he did this video, which kind of takes most of the work out of it. But then I just go into my story, how I found out.
Yeah.
And you would be surprised the amount of people will think, well, that happens to me all the time. Started 6 months ago. There you go. I've had a few people contact me and say, hey, we listened to what you were saying and went over to my doctor and come to find out we have early onset. So now the medication gets started and they do all the tests. And that's how I got involved. Was I was looking for information for me because I knew so little. I mean, obviously I knew what dementia was and I knew how people reacted, but I didn't know about medication and other things.
Right.
So when I got involved and I talked to Kevin Jameson about it, I said, hey, I'd be happy to help you. I just don't know what I could do. He said, why don't you go teach a class or two and we'll call you, and there's bound to be somebody. Well, it blows off. We get calls every day. They call me and I just try to set up a schedule and go out there. Doesn't matter if it's 5 caregivers or 50 or 500. I don't know how to make 500. But it's very intense. And the thing about it is it's all about information. It's all about education. It's all about early warning signs. And the biggest thing is you don't think it's a warning sign. That was my problem. I thought, oh, well, I'm just repeating myself, or I just forgot something, or I got excited. In my case, multitasking and stress now turns me into a babbling idiot. What I mean by that is I can't do anything multitasking. I have to focus on one project and then go and then go to the next one. I can't do 2 or 3 things at one time like I used to.
Sure.
The reason that is obviously and that stuff. But it's very interesting. But that's how I got involved in dementia.
Yeah.
Was looking for myself, and then it just kind of blossomed from there. And now, in fact, I'll see Kevin next week, and I get the material from them, and I go wherever I'm asked. If somebody calls the call center and says, hey, we want one over here in Beaumont, Texas, and I'll make arrangements with them and drive on over.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing is obviously I have to keep very close contact with psychiatrists, therapists, obviously medication. I keep a log of when I have my mania. I don't have a lot of it. If I have one where it's not working, something triggered it, and now you're going to ask me about triggers. I don't know mine. And what I mean by that, I don't get trigger log anymore because I've got my medication down.
Right.
But I can tell if I'm having a real high one, which makes it interesting because I don't sleep for 24 hours, but the house is. Or I have a low one, then you start getting into depression. Then I have medication that will bring me out of that. I use clonidine or Edit. So that's a situation, but that's rarely done anymore.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing is I keep my medication, and I don't hesitate to call the psychiatrist if I feel that mania is good, because otherwise you have a situation where it builds up. And again, I just have to try to keep myself healthy, like I told you before, because my immune system is complication. Right. If you get sick, you just get depressed because you're already worn down. Now you do that. But mine is just basically keep my medication. I don't miss it. It's the same time every day. Has been for a long time, and I will change it. If I change it, I'd probably be in. This way I don't just keep up with it.
Right. Yeah, I think that keeping in touch with your psychiatrist and mental health professional in general for almost any mental health diagnosis is really important. And I hear a lot of people say, well, I don't see my therapist until, next Tuesday or next Wednesday or whatever.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. And so whenever somebody has said that to me, I'm like, listen, I know that they want to hear from you if you're having a hard time. Like, I know that they want to hear from you sooner than you just waiting until your next scheduled appointments. It's really good to hear you say, that you just contact them, because that's one of the things that at least my therapist is like, listen, after this happens next week, no matter what happens this way or that way, can you just let me know? Like, just shoot me an email or send me a text or something, and just let me know how it went, kind of thing, which I've been really grateful for. And she and I, neither one of us are great with keeping up with our email, as you know.
I'm not either. I hate to tell you.
I can keep up with Twitter messages, but for some reason my inbox just gets completely ignored for many days at a time.
Yeah, mine too, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I'll send her an email, and then she won't necessarily respond except to say, okay, I got your email, we can talk about it next time. But I do know that if I were to have an emergency and I sent her an email or called her office or anything like that, that she would be glad that I called instead of just waited, because I don't, I see her every other week. It's not like if I'm having suicidal ideations tomorrow, I'm not going to wait until next week to talk to her.
Exactly.
So that's really good to hear. That always shocks me. Yeah.
Me too. And I guess maybe it's from the emergency background, but you know what? And not trying to be rude to any professional out there, is, they're mine. I'm their responsibility, and I have my own responsibility to them. And that is, if something's going on, make the phone call.
Yeah.
Or email, or whatever they prefer you do. We have my chart set up here at my facility. I think a lot of them do now through Epic. And I can just send a note right to the nurse and say, hey, I need an appointment. I need to see him tomorrow. Can I do that? Or can I come in later today? And shoot right back with, but it's very soon. It's not, and I'll tell them, hey, I'm having an issue. This happened, that happened. I'm not afraid to say it, though. A lot of people are scared to. Not me. Hey, I had one of my moments, and I just ended up cleaning 40 city blocks of streets. What I'm going to, and these are things that you need to know. Well, I just shoot them an email on that system, and shoot 30 minutes, maybe an hour. I'll be getting, can you be here tomorrow too, or whatever.
Yeah.
And, but you got to ask, what's the old saying? You don't know if you don't ask. Because they're assuming everything's fine, or you would be calling them.
Yeah.
But if you're, like you just said, if you're in suicidal mode, they don't want you to wait until the ambulance is dragging you into the ER.
Right.
And they want to know now. Now, they may send an ambulance for you. That's them. But, the moral of the story there is you've got to make contact.
Yeah.
And people won't do it. They're scared. I don't know why, really. I don't think their people have done that. I would hope not. And that goes back to what we said. If people have done that to them, time to fire them and go to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that there's certain aspects of those of us, myself included, who have this perfectionist mindset of, I have to make an A on everything, graduated 4.0, killed myself doing it. I mean, it was ridiculous that I even did that. And did it matter after I was done? No, not one bit. But I want to pass everything. I want to get a good grade, even though I haven't been in college for many, many years, but I want to get a good grade on everything still. And it's like, can I win at therapy? No, it's not a winning thing. But do I feel like I have failed if I backslide? Sometimes I feel that way a little bit. And my therapist is really good about, hey, you can't, this isn't something that I'm not scoring you on this. Like, this isn't all right, well, today you made an A and tomorrow you made a B if you backslide or anything. It's not a linear process. And I think a lot of people view mental health, and especially mental health treatment. Here's that Maine Coon I was talking about. He's finally like, you're talking to someone else now. Mental health and mental health treatment is not this linear process. And I think a lot of people view it as a very linear, here's step 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, sometimes it's step 1, 2, and then 7, and then back to 2, and then 3, 4, and then 10, and then, back to 2 and 3. So I think that it's that linear view of things that really kind of messes some people up sometimes.
Well, I think that the other thing that I've noticed, in part medical background, part my mental health and other dementia, is kind of have 3 phases, I guess, all my stuff, is that people never want to be they never want to be that patient that complains.
Oh, yeah.
They never want to be a non-compliant patient, because they hear all these horror stories about doctors dumping them. because they were non. I have the smartest and most intelligent primary doctor there is in the system. And he is so picky. Doesn't scream or yell, but when he gives you what he wants done, by golly, he wants it done.
Yeah.
Am I afraid of him? Of course not. But I know what he expects of me. But with the same token, he knows what I expect of him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it a good relationship. And if you can't have that with your, especially mental health, where it's a constant battle, I'm never going to be better than I am. You're not going to wave a wand and my brain's going to do whatever it's supposed to do. It's just like people with chronic conditions. Mental health is a chronic condition.
Mm-hmm.
We medicate it, we throw things at it, we try to, therapy it, we do whatever. But they can't, and I don't know anybody that would tell you they could if they do well.
Right.
But you've got to have that relationship. It's got to be open on both sides. And again, if it's not, find somebody else. Find somebody that you can deal with.
Kind of same questions for schizophrenia and Alzheimer's. Is your top favorite strategy for those pretty much the same?
Schizophrenia is. That's totally medication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's not much else you can do about that. The Alzheimer's, my biggest thing is I go to the gym every day. I know I do not turn out like Arnold Schwarzenegger anymore. Those years are long gone. But it's mainly to keep the blood pumping. The other thing is I try to read as much as I can, whether it be a book or something online or maybe something you've done, whatever, just so I keep my brain going. Do crosswords. I know it sounds silly, but it does keep you thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Anything that keeps your mind activated will turn on the endorphins, then of course the endorphins heal. So the medication is obviously primary, because without it, I'd be drooling in my soup. But anyway, those are the type of things I do for the Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I know it's not curable, but I'm not going to be passing away tomorrow from it.
Right.
So, so my thing is deal with the Dementia Society is basically until I can't go anymore.
Right.
And that's what I intend to do.
Yeah. Tyrion, you have to back off. No, now his head is through
I'm not
there.
going to.
Stop. If I move this down, then maybe you can't be there anymore.
The poor cat.
I'm like trying to get it where it blocks him. It's not really working. He just goes around it or moves it. He's such
I'm a long ways away for a response, so you're gonna have to let her call the fire department.
He's such a little diva. Oh, right. Well, so that's funny because actually a guy that I dated in high school did call the fire department for a cat in a tree one time because his cat was declawed, but only declawed on the front paws, so not declawed on the back paws. So he could get up just fine. The cat's name was Spaz, but he could get up just fine, but he couldn't get back down. And the fire department did come out. I can't remember if they got him out or not. I think that they sprayed him with water or something to get him down. Not from the fire hose though. That would be horrible.
Yeah, because that'd kill him.
Just like from a regular hose.
Yeah. No,
but it was
really
funny.
Pressure in that to knock him across the town.
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember. My dad did. I can't remember if it was between like Dallas and Fort Worth or what, but they would have kegs. And they would push the kegs with the fire hoses, and whichever department could get the fire hoses furthest.
Fire department musters. Musters very well. Yeah. We would go to LA City all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of water wasted on those, but it was very entertaining.
Yeah. Well, entertainment value sometimes is a good thing to have. If you weren't doing what you do now, or if you had chosen a different career, what would you be doing or have done instead?
It's funny. I don't know. And the reason I don't know is this is all I've known. I, of course, like every kid in the 60s and 70s, grew up watching Johnny and Roy. And what happened for me is in my junior high, I think they call it middle school, junior high, 7th grade, one of the paramedic squads from LA County came to the school.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I knew what it was because watching emergency, and they brought all their equipment in, all the toys, and everything was exciting. And from that day on, I literally knew that's what.
That's awesome.
I actually used to, when I was about 15 or 16 in high school, I used to go to the junior high and high school with a buddy of mine, my partner, many years. We would go teach CPR class. So that got us kind of started that way. And then of course, we were old enough for fire department. We did, but that's truly all I've ever known.
Yeah.
I've never had another career in my mind. So people ask me that. I don't know. I've never thought of it. This is truly all I know. This is truly my identity is emergency medicine. That's all I know. And, firemen, we like to squirt water, make a mess anyway. So, but that's truly my forte. So I really don't know what else I want.
Yeah. No, I
have no idea.
That's fair. I mean, there are a lot of people who they get this idea. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a vet. And that didn't happen. Not hardly. I'm like the furthest thing away from a veterinarian you could possibly be. But it's always cool to kind of find out, if you figured out what you wanted to do really young and followed it through. Or
I was lucky.
Yeah, that's really cool. If you could wave a magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception or theory surrounding mental illness or talking about mental health, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing for me, and of course, the stigma situation, everybody that has mental health issues is not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the world stigmatizes mental health, whether it be bipolar, schizophrenia, major depression disorder, BPD, whatever your initials are. You're not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You have an issue. You have a disease. Just as if I had cancer, God forbid, it's a disease.
Yep.
My heart issue, it's a heart disease. These are not things that makes you unable to have families, have lives, be married, be in love, have kids. These are things that you have to go and attend to. Now, if you don't tend to them, well, that's going to be on you, because there are resources out there. They are scarce. And I think that's where it comes to people like myself, yourself, that have to help people, because there's people who have no clue.
Yeah.
Like I had no clue about dementia. I mean, I was ignorant other than I knew what it was. I had no clue there was all this. The only way I found it again was looking for myself. So, okay, now what do I, that's peachy. And there is it's like now what I've done with the society is our main facility here is part of a huge system. It has 39-40 hospitals. And my goal is to get every one of them involved in the society where they have, pamphlets, lobbies, doctor's office. Because you'd be surprised how many people are probably early diagnosable and don't even.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be the stigma that people live in. I'm proof you can.
Yeah.
Did it take work? Oh, Lord. I can't tell you. But it was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great career, family. So, yeah, you can do it. Is it going to be easy? No, probably. First thing you have to do, no matter what you do, once you get diagnosed with anything, is the greatest practitioner for your problem. First thing I tell people, ask other people, ask friends, family, grandparents, because they've got somebody. Find out that if that doesn't work, go to your local hospital. They can refer you to a physician and read about it, or the nurse, or the therapist, or whatever they are. Did they graduate from a school that you ever heard of? What are their ratings with people? Pains in the tuchus? Do they have no bedside manner? You need to know these things, because when you're in there with them, it's too late then.
Yeah.
You want to do that before you get there. Do your homework just like you would anything. They tell you when you go for a job interview, know all about when you go in for that first doctor visit, know all about that doctor.
Yep.
And that will make a difference. Plus, it gives you something to start to talk about. Oh, I hear you went to, University of Illinois for your med school. How'd you like it? Just something to start the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they think you've checked on them, they're going to know you're interested. Just like a job.
Yep.
It's what it is. It's a job interview.
Yeah.
You're interviewing them. They're not interviewing you. You've got to be able to tell anything to.
Yeah, that's critical. Like, you are, as the person seeking care, you are the one interviewing that doctor to make sure that they're a good fit. And
that's right.
If people approach that a little bit differently, I think that they would have different outcomes and be more satisfied with the level of care that they're receiving. So that's a great one.
Getting the level you need, then go somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't mean you don't like the person. I can like lots of people, but I never let them work for me.
Yeah.
Because, they'd be lazy as a turd or whatever, but I mean, I love them to death, but
Yep.
And that's the same thing. I've had guys that in the department, they between stations, and I've had guys that were friends of mine, nice people in the world, but I wouldn't let them go to my station for all the money on earth. Because I know they're not good at what they do. They're lazy, or lazy for me. But I will say, what do they say, full disclosure, I was a very but you do your job, you can play hard and pay, play hard and work hard and all that. It's just how you are with a doctor. I want a doctor that I know understands.
Yeah.
If you don't understand me, that's okay. Not your fault. I don't understand myself half the time either. Why should you? But,
right.
The situation is that I have to know, like my primary, like I said, he's the most intelligent man, probably the best doctor in our system. But I know that if I call up and say, hey, I'm having a problem, he's right there.
Right.
He's on the spot. And that's all I care about.
Yeah.
And that's all we should all care about.
Yep, absolutely. Well, are there any other resources or sites or personal recommendations or anything we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
Well, the only thing I would say is it depends on your diagnosis. But I would say start with your local hospital. They know everything about everybody in every organization. If not, you may have to resort to the old-fashioned, Googling, but look at your particular situation. There are bipolar organizations, there are schizophrenic organizations. Look them up, get their resources. Now, it's going to take some time. It's not going to be over, I guarantee you. But like the Dementia Society of America, the one I'm involved with, dementia, obviously, we're one of the top ones because that's all we do. We don't charge for anything, by the way. Our material we give to you. We come do the classes. We don't charge for anything. If you want to make a donation, great. If you don't, Alzheimer's Association of America, they're very good. But my biggest thing is whatever your diagnosis is, start doing some research. Whether it be ask people like myself or yourself, whether it be ask your neighbor. You'd be surprised how many people have something and you don't know because they're scared to tell you.
Yeah.
But start the more research you have, I'm sure you know this from what you do, the more research you have, the better information you get. Not all of it's accurate.
Yep.
Not all of it's easy to read, not all of it's correct, but you'll have to decide that on your own. But there are people out there that'll help you. At any time, if anybody has any questions, they can always get a hold of you to get a hold of me. I'm easy to approach when it comes to dementia. Obviously, I'm the one you'll deal with. Comes to this other stuff, I have some contacts in associations, but don't fight it alone because that will tear you every time.
Yeah, and it's been amazing to me just since I started talking openly about mental health and the struggles that I've had, the struggles that I've seen in people around me. It's amazing how many people, once you start talking about it, really open up. And people that I grew up with. I mean, I grew up with these people in school, and we've been friends ever since. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, I struggle with that too. And I'm like, dude, you have not once mentioned that to me. Where have you been? Where were you when I started in this struggle, and why didn't anybody talk about it? And that's one of the things that I just wish that it would completely go away, is that stigma of you can't talk about it. You can't talk about it. So
yeah, it's just like in my day when it all started. I can just imagine what would have been out there if I would open. God, I would have been exercised from everything that there was. And you know what? I shouldn't have felt that way, but I'm not stupid. I know better too. To this day, is it better? Of course it is. Is it perfect? No. And there will be. Nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
But we have to do the best we can. And there needs to be people out there like us that will challenge it and go forward. And that's what you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
By what you do, by putting it out over the airwaves, if you will. I know that's an old term, but I am old. People out there can understand, and you bring people on that try to explain it. And I think that's what's important. I mean, we really actually owe you for doing it, not you asking us to do it, but you're doing it. And I had never seen anybody do it before until you and I met. So it's every one person that learns something that's what's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Education is key.
Yes, education, absolutely. And the more that I talk about things like this with people like you, every time I talk to somebody, it's amazing how much you talked earlier about. If you tell one person, they're going to tell 3 other people. Like that's, for me, that's been very true, because the more that I talk to one person, like I meet 3 other people through them, and it's amazing just how much that spreads so quickly. So it's great. But